I never thought that one simple event would change my perspective on life forever. For years, I ran after what I thought was true success without ever stopping to breathe. I thought that the more I had, the happier I would feel each day. But life has an unexpected way of opening our eyes when we are least ready to hear it.
I used to measure my happiness by how far I could surpass those around me. I worked from morning until late at night, skipping meals with my family, and often forgetting to enjoy the fresh air outside. Every time I got what I wanted, I was only satisfied for a moment, then immediately set a new, even higher goal. I thought the emptiness I felt was just a sign that I wasn't successful enough, that I didn't have it all yet. People around me often praised what I had built, and that made me feel like I was on the right path. I started talking less with my neighbors, and even less often walking along the paths I had used as a child. All the things that once made me smile simply now felt too trivial to take up my precious time. I forgot what it felt like to sit quietly, listening to the wind rustling through the leaves, or feeling the raindrops on my face. Until one day, my body suddenly rebelled and forced me to stop all my activities immediately. The doctor told me to take a complete rest, get away from all the burdens of my mind, and stay in a quiet place for some time. I felt very upset and afraid because I was worried that everything I had worked for would be destroyed if I didn't take care of it every day. But there was no other choice. Finally, I returned to the old house in the village where I spent my childhood. In the first few days there, I felt like time was passing so slowly, and every minute was excruciating. I didn't know what to do without a busy schedule and tasks to complete as quickly as possible. I paced the yard, staring at the sky, and feeling useless for doing nothing. My mind was constantly filled with worries about what was happening in my old home, even though I couldn't do anything about it. Over time, I grew accustomed to the silence and slowly stopped forcing myself to be busy. I began to notice small things I'd never noticed before, like the way dew dripped from the tips of leaves in the morning. I watched sparrows forage on the ground, and the way clouds slowly changed shape in the blue sky. I began to realize that all this time, my eyes had been clouded by ambition, preventing me from seeing the beauty all around me. One afternoon, I met an old neighbor who used to tell me stories when I was little. He sat in front of his house peeling bananas and greeted me with the same warm smile as before. We sat together without saying much at first, just listening to the sound of the small river flowing near his house. Finally, I told him all the worries and confusion I had felt all this time, without hiding anything.
He didn't give me lengthy advice or complicated words like I often hear from others. He simply pointed to a gently flowing river and said that water never stops just because a rock blocks it. It will continue to flow, finding the most suitable path, and slowly, even the hardest rock will be shaped by its flow. He said that happiness doesn't lie in how quickly we reach our destination, but in how we enjoy each step of the journey. Hearing those words, it felt like a heavy weight had been lifted off my chest for years. I realized that I had been running too fast, forgetting that I also needed to rest and enjoy what I already had. I had been chasing a shadow of happiness that kept slipping away every time I tried to reach it, even though happiness was within me. I felt stupid for only now understanding such a simple thing, but at the same time, I felt relieved that I finally realized it. That night, I went to sleep feeling much calmer than I had in previous nights. I no longer dreamed about goals to achieve or feared possible failure. I dreamed about my childhood, when I could run in the meadow without worrying about time or what others thought. I felt like I was back to my old self, innocent and happy with simple things. The next morning, I woke up as the sun was just rising, and my body felt much lighter than usual. I went outside and breathed in the cool morning air, which felt refreshing to every corner of my chest. I didn't immediately reach for my phone to check messages or my schedule, but instead, I walked slowly to the garden behind the house. I saw the thriving vegetable plants and marveled at how nature worked so quietly and without rushing.
I started helping my neighbor plant vegetable seedlings, even though I wasn't used to such physical labor. My hands got dirty with dirt, and sometimes they ached after working all day in the sun. But strangely, the aches felt good because I knew I was creating something useful. Every time I saw the seedlings I planted grow taller, I felt a simple yet sincere joy from deep within. At noon, we ate together on our neighbor's porch, just warm rice, fresh vegetables, and homemade chili sauce. The food was very simple, but it tasted far better than any fancy meal I'd ever had in an expensive restaurant. We talked about trivial things, the weather, the plants, and past memories without any rush. I realized that the deliciousness of food lies not only in the ingredients, but in the feeling of peace and togetherness that comes with eating it. I began spending time sitting quietly by the river, just staring at the flowing water and letting my mind settle. I used to think that sitting still and doing nothing was a waste of time, but now I know it's a time to talk to myself. I began to understand that we don't have to be busy to feel valuable, and that rest is part of the journey itself. Many things that used to make me angry and anxious now felt much smaller and less valuable than I had previously thought. In those quiet days, I slowly put back together the pieces of myself that had been scattered by chasing the wrong things. I learned to distinguish between what I truly needed and what I only wanted because I was influenced by others. I began to realize that a simple life doesn't mean a life of poverty or boredom, but rather a life rich in inner peace. And this was the beginning of a change that changed my entire perspective on the true meaning of life.
The longer I lived there, the more I realized how much I'd missed out on because of my blind busyness. I remembered how often I'd turned down family gatherings, citing work that I couldn't leave. I'd forgotten what it felt like to laugh freely without thinking about the time that was constantly chasing me. And now I promised myself I'd never again take such precious things for granted. One day I was taking a long walk up the hill across from the village, a place I'd often climbed as a child. The path was narrow and winding, sometimes steep and slippery after the rain a few days earlier. I might have been frustrated by the uneven and slow pace, but now I enjoyed every step I took. I stopped many times just to breathe deeply and enjoy the view that opened up before me. When I reached the top of the hill, I was stunned by the expansive village landscape beneath my feet. The small houses looked like toys, the green and golden rice paddies formed beautiful patterns, and the river meandered through the fields. I never expected this view to be so breathtaking, even though it was only a short distance from my house. It felt like all the remaining burdens on my shoulders suddenly melted away, replaced by a profound sense of awe. There, I realized that all this time I had only seen a small speck before my eyes, not the entire landscape of life. I had been so focused on what I didn't have that I forgot how fortunate I was with what I already had. The shortcomings I often complained about were only a small part of the overall beauty that life had given me. If I had never stopped and climbed here, I would never have seen this complete picture. That very day, I began to understand that what we call failure or setback is often just a detour to something better. My sick body forced me to stop, but it was stopping that saved me from going down the wrong path. I no longer see that incident as a disaster, but rather as a gift that brought me to my senses just in time. Life knows when we need to stop, even if we don't realize it ourselves.
When I returned to the old house, I found an old wooden box in the corner of the barn, long covered in dust. Inside were my childhood diaries, simple toys, and letters from loved ones that I had kept neatly. Reading my clumsy handwriting, I smiled at how simple my dreams were back then. I just wanted to live healthily, be able to share with others, and see the smiles of my loved ones. Somehow, as I grew older, I slowly forgot those simple dreams and replaced them with increasingly complex goals. I traded easy happiness for endless ambition. I wandered so far away from my true self that I barely recognized who I really was. This small box was like a mirror, showing me who I should have become. A few days later, I began rearranging the yard, which I had previously let become overgrown with weeds. I didn't try to make it neat and luxurious like a city garden, but rather let it grow naturally as it wished. I planted local flowers, easy-to-grow vegetables, and left room for wild grasses and forest plants. It turns out that beauty doesn't always have to be strictly regulated. Sometimes it's most beautiful when left to grow naturally. That afternoon, an elderly neighbor visited, bringing a package of boiled cassava and a cup of hot coffee. We sat on the porch, enjoying the simple meal, gazing at the yard, which was now starting to look different.
He said that the most beautiful changes always begin with a changed heart, not with the things we add. His words reminded me that I don't need to change the world, just the way I see it. That night, rain fell gently, moistening the earth that had long awaited fresh water. I sat by the window, listening to the sound of the raindrops hitting the roof of the trees, and it felt like my heart was being cleansed. I realized that, like parched soil, our hearts need time to absorb goodness before they can grow again. There's nothing wrong with pausing, waiting for the right time to move forward again.
During the rain, I did nothing but sit, reflect, and rest completely. I used to be anxious about not being able to move forward, but now I understand that rest is part of progress itself. Trees don't grow every second. They grow when we're not looking, when they absorb water and strength from the soil. Likewise, our greatest growth often occurs when we're still and reflecting. After the rain stopped, the world seemed brighter and cleaner, each leaf glistening in its true color. I walked outside and breathed in the clean air, refreshing to the very marrow of my bones. I realized that sometimes we need storms and rain to wash away the dust that accumulates in our eyes and hearts. Without change and challenge, we would never know how clean and beautiful the world truly is. I started writing in that old diary again, no longer about big goals or plans, but about the little things that made me happy, about the warmth of the morning sun, the sound of the river, the smiles of my neighbors, and the pleasure of fresh air. Each page was filled with gratitude, not complaints or endless desires. The writing felt much lighter and more enjoyable than my stressful work journals. Slowly, I realized that happiness is never far away or in the hands of others. It is within us, waiting for us to be calm and wise enough to rediscover it. We often forget to take it with us because we are too busy chasing what is out there. And our hardest task is simply to return to ourselves. My scheduled break is now almost over, but I no longer feel afraid or rushed to return. I know that I will return differently, with calmer steps and a wiser heart. I will not leave this simplicity behind, but rather take it with me wherever I go. And now is the time for me to prepare myself to step into a new, meaningful chapter.
The day of my departure arrived, and I no longer carried the heavy bag full of work files I had when I arrived. All I brought were simple clothes, that old diary, and a heart much lighter than before. I walked slowly to my vehicle, glancing back repeatedly at the old house and the village that had changed my life. I didn't feel sad about leaving, because I knew I had never truly left the meaning I had established here. When I returned to my old home, everything looked the same as before, yet it felt completely different to me. The tall buildings, busy streets, and bustling people around me no longer made me feel compelled to run as fast as I could. I saw how many people seemed to be in a hurry, but their faces looked tired and empty, just like my old self. I no longer felt dragged along by the current, because now I knew which path I truly wanted to take. I started to reorganize my work routine, no longer working from morning until late at night nonstop. I completed my tasks well and thoroughly, but I set aside time to rest and enjoy time with loved ones. It turned out that my work actually became neater, and the results were better when I no longer pushed myself with excessive pressure. I realized that quality is far more valuable than just the amount of time we spend. I started taking time to walk in the city park every afternoon, something I once viewed as a waste of time. I stopped to look at the blooming flowers, listen to the birds chirp, and greet people I met on the street. There are so many beautiful things hidden all around us. It's just that my eyes were too busy looking ahead to look around. Now every step feels valuable, not just a means to an end. People started asking me what had changed, why I seemed so much calmer and happier, despite not having as much as I used to. I didn't explain it in complicated words. I just told them about what I had learned from living a simple life in the village. I told them that happiness is not about increasing what we have, but about reducing unnecessary desires. The less we need, the more space there is for gratitude and peace.
Sometimes I still face problems or things that don't go my way, just like everyone else. But now I no longer panic or get angry when that happens. I just pause and try to see things from a different perspective. I believe that behind every event, there's a meaning that life is trying to convey to me. Sometimes it teaches me patience, sometimes it teaches me sincerity, and always it teaches me to remain grateful. I've also begun to appreciate the people around me more, realizing that their presence is a priceless gift. I no longer put off talking to them, sharing a laugh, or simply listening to their stories, because I know there's no guarantee that we'll always have time tomorrow to do the things we should do today. Presence and compassion are the greatest riches we can have while we're alive on this earth. I used to think that a simple life meant a life that was stiff and lacking in color, but it turns out to be the opposite. A simple life has actually opened my eyes to the thousands of beauties that were once hidden by greed and excessive ambition. Every little thing now seems so precious, every moment feels so meaningful, and every day feels like a new gift. The colors of my life have actually become much brighter since I stopped chasing unnecessary colors. I no longer dream of being the most successful or the richest person in the eyes of others. My dream is now much simpler: to live peacefully, do good as often as possible, and enjoy every second I am given. I want to be someone who can understand the difficulties of others and be a comfortable resting place for anyone who is tired. That is the true success that I now seek and love with all my heart. Sometimes I return to the village just to greet my old neighbors and walk along the tranquil riverbank. Every time I go there, I feel like I've come home, the place where I rediscovered myself. The village hasn't changed much, but I know I've become a much better person thanks to it, and I'm grateful that fate brought me there just in time.
I realized that we don't need to travel far or experience a major event to change our lives. That change can start with a simple question to ourselves: what do I really need to be happy? And the answer is often much simpler than we ever imagined. It just takes the courage to pause and take a different step. Now I know that the meaning of life lies not in how far we can go, but in how well we go. Not in how much we have, but in how sincerely we appreciate what we already have. Not in how many people know us, but in how deeply we know ourselves. And not in how fast we get there, but in how much good we leave behind along the way. This journey isn't over. I will continue to learn, fall, and get back up in the days to come. But now I'm no longer afraid of what lies ahead, because I have the right compass in my heart. I know that as long as I stick to kindness and simplicity, I will never stray too far. And that is the greatest wealth I take away from this simple experience. I hope this story I've told can touch the heart of anyone who feels tired of chasing something unclear. I hope you too have the courage to pause, breathe a sigh of relief, and see the beauty of what's already right around you. You don't need to run fast to be valuable. You already are valuable from the moment you arrive in this world, in all your simplicity. The happiness you seek is not far away. It's waiting for you to return home within yourself. This is my story of how I finally understood the meaning of a simple yet magical life. Everyone has their own time to realize this, and it's never too late to start today. Let this story be a small reminder to accompany you on tired days or when your heart is restless, because ultimately, a simple life is the one closest to true peace. Hopefully, this story can be a reminder for all of us to not be too busy running that we forget to enjoy the journey. If there is a valuable lesson you can learn today, don't hesitate to share it in the comments column with your loved ones. Thank you for taking the time to reflect and share this journey with me from beginning to end. See you again in the next story, which is also full of meaning, peace, and kindness.